Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, D'Angelo Russell says he's ready to turn over a new leaf. Can we believe him? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, this one's always free, never behind paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers, Andy, all of whom are looking forward to Friday's preseason opener and getting themselves excited about the new old Lakers, basically the same group, but with a twist with JJ Redick. So we'll get into a few things about Redick and his approach to data and how what Anthony Davis thinks about all those things. That came out of practice on Wednesday. Some news, quick update on Christian Coloco, which we will get to before the end of the show. But I got this comment, Andy. We got this one on the YouTube page after our show for Wednesday, a lot of which was spent talking about Max Christie. And so I made the point, Andy, that it's not that I'm down on Christie or don't believe in his skill, just that, in my opinion, he hasn't necessarily shown that he is, capable of being. He's not yet been a consistent rotation player. Got this note from Schmidtke Originals on the YouTube page. BK, sell your property on D'Lo Island. Invest all of it on Max Island. Trust me, offense wins games. Defense wins championships.
Actually, I saw that comment really quickly from Schmidtke, and he actually said sell your property on Low Island because there's no D in D'Lo because he doesn't play defense. And I just want to say off the top, Schmidtke's is a regular, like he is a true regular, and I cannot say enough how much we appreciate the viewership and the participation and all of it. The D'Lo or blank guy, we call him blank because he has no D, bro. That's so played out. Like it's so played out.
Help like us, help you.
Like Schmidtke, I love you, man. I truly love you.
Come together as we all
reason we don't react. There's a reason.
Schmidtke from himself. But yes. The point, there are a couple
of new season, buddy.
A couple of things I thought about this. First of all, I am on Max Island. I have no problem with Christie. I just think,
you haven't bought a pricey house there.
I think it's just no, it's not that I have a house. I'm just not 100% sure I'm going to get the return that I want. I need to see what real estate does over there, how it appreciates.
Should have been like me and bought early.
But the thing about it is we can invest in more than one island at the same time. And there is room among island real estate holders to own property on both. And, this idea of selling on D'Lo Island, Laker fans should hope that isn't something that needs to be done. The Lakers might sell D'Lo Island, like literally just sell the whole island and move it to another location.
But they're eventually going to bring it back. This is just the cycle. Even if they trade him, he'll be back in a few years. This is what we do.
Circle of life.
Yeah.
And so, it is in everybody's best interest for
Bronny will be teammates on his retirement tour.
D'Lo's going to play with his kid with the Lakers. Beautiful little kid too. Very adorable family.
Yep.
That D'Lo has. Mm-hmm. So, obviously it's in everybody's best interest, but like of all Russell is, I think, both incredibly self-aware, but also not quite, or at least to this point, disciplined enough to always follow through on some of the things that he, as much as I like the guy, as much as he that he is understands needs correcting, or things that he's matching the action to the words. And so on Monday, when he comes and essentially starts his his media time with an apology to the Lakers and the Lakers fans, I think particularly for his maturity level in his first go round. But and vowing to be better and saying like this year he wants to really justify the enthusiasm and faith that JJ Redick is showing in him. It just sort of begs the question as to whether or not, first, what he's talking about, and then whether he'll follow through.
Well, here's what he said. This was Monday on the dais during media day. Honestly, I want to apologize in the sense of showing a lack of professionalism at times, showing a lack of team first perception at times. So for me, just keeping that maturity and that professionalism throughout the year, no matter the ups and downs, holding myself more accountable on the defensive end. Obviously, I know I'm capable, but when you get subbed out of the game for an offensive defensive possession, that shows where your trust is with your coach and with your ability. So for me, just trying to gain that trust with coach defensively and consistently. I'm going to show up to every day, every practice game, preseason, whatever, just knowing that coach has trust in me. And I asked D'Lo during media day a follow-up on this. And, because I remember, I think it was actually last year's media day, D'Lo conceded that because by NBA standards, he is not athletic, certainly compared to most of his peers around the league. And
but compared to the rest of humanity, he is, but compared to other NBA players, he's not.
Right. But what actually matters is how he matches up against the rest of the league. And, he doesn't have some of the same physical gifts, things like that. So I asked him, like, you've acknowledged this before. How do you go about just trying to identify the things you can do defensively versus the things that just are not within your power? Because he said the area where this affects me the most is on defense. And he said it was really just a matter of focus and awareness. Like, he brought up the idea of missing box outs and things like that. Like, those are the things that,
which is, I mean, again, two people who are very supportive of D'Angelo Russell think he is unfairly maligned in some ways, and to the point of like people kind of missing the forest for the trees. That happens all the time, all the time.
Right. And look, there are going to be certain matchups where, like, let's say D'Lo has to box out Pascal Siakam. Like, he's not likely going to win that battle, but you just want to see him battling. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to see somebody like D'Lo just always doing the best he can with what he has, and just general on-court awareness, like that intelligence. D'Lo is a really, really smart guy on and off the court, and there's been a lot of talk about how they want to have a more organized offense. They want to have more defined defensive principles, more of a defined idea what they're doing out there. And it's been stressed that in a lot of ways, this is going to be more of a team-centric defensive plan as opposed to guarding your own guy centric, which means everybody really has to be A, synergized, and B, covering for each other. And those are the type of things that D'Lo was saying, like, I need to be better at this, and I can be better at this because this has nothing to do with what I am physically capable of doing on the court or not. It's, do I want it bad enough to just stay mentally locked in?
It's interesting to frame it as like, do I want it bad enough? Because, to me, I don't know if that's exactly the right framing for it. It is, why? Well, and it's a muscle memory thing. It's sort of a discipline thing. And obviously, you can train yourself to do that kind of stuff, but like,
people break habits all the time.
Right. And it's also really, really, really hard. And I
smoked for like 20 years. I eventually figured out how to quit. It was hard as hell to do it.
Right. I say some people can, some people can't. And it's like, what is interesting, when we can talk about this after the break, what is interesting about it to me is whether or not you can, which parts of this he can develop the sort of on-court muscle memory. What year are we in? 10?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that for him in his 10th or 11th year. Like, what you are capable changing. So aspects of this, I think he is approaching very smartly, and then other aspects, I'm skeptical. So we'll talk about it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can enjoy the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So let's just say you're watching a game and it feels like you are predicting everything before it happens. And you just got a hunch how this thing is going to play out in the second half with the scoring. You can actually check out the latest stats and view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you would go to eventually place your bet. So you can just confirm your hunches. You got all that information streamlined right in front of you, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And 24-25 NBA season is really close to kicking off. Our friends at FanDuel have options for you. As of this recording, the Lakers are 35-1 to win the title. Anthony Davis 150-1 for MVP. He's also 25-1 for Defensive Player of the Year, which he'll say he doesn't care about winning, but he actually does. And Max Christie is 150-1 for Most Improved Player. That is FanDuel.com.
Quick update. Not a whole lot of news coming out of practice on Wednesday. One of the things that JJ Redick did mention is that Christian Coloco still not practicing with the team, still not cleared yet to play. So no indication on when that might be. But if you are waiting in quiet anticipation for the debut of Christian Coloco, you may have to wait a little bit longer. Lakers and the NBA obviously need to figure out what is required to get him back on the floor. So,
and it's serious stuff, just as a reminder.
Right. It's not like, a guy with a twisted ankle or something, with his medical condition, he needs, there are protocols for what
history of blood clots,
right,
for those who don't remember.
Thank you. Yeah, there are protocols for getting people back on the floor. Lakers confident it'll happen, but they don't know exactly when, which is what they said last week too when they were talking about this. So we'll get to Anthony Davis as well, and some of an interesting exchange about analytics and what maybe differing approaches between LA's star and LA's coaching staff. But to finish up this D'Lo conversation, I think when you use framing it like, does he want it enough? I mean, you can apply that to the sort of mental discipline, but at least in common sports terminology, like whatever, do you want it enough is like usually applied to like physical stuff. Can you run a little bit harder? Can you, just grind a little bit more, like, to put up another 100 jumpers or things like that. And again, I understand. I don't think you're wrong, and I think it is applicable. But this is a different kind of wanted. This is, Russell Westbrook, for example, broadly speaking, played real hard, like really, really hard. Never ever developed the consistent discipline in this kind of thing on the defensive side of the floor. It would ebb and flow, it would come and go and stuff like that. Broadly played incredibly hard, had plenty of want it, so to speak, that people would. This is a different deal. This is the mental discipline of always staying and remembering all the details when you're playing and never allowing yourself to relax, because it's not about running faster, trying harder. I mean, most of the time it's more about never allowing yourself to check out even for a moment, quarter second, a half second, whatever. And that's the moment somebody goes backdoor and all of a sudden you give up a bucket. I am hopeful that D'Lo can improve some in that way. And maybe he and JJ Redick can work together on that. Maybe the defensive scheme the Lakers have, and it's all, every NBA team runs a defensive, with the amount of switching and all these other things, it's been team defense rather than individual defense for a decade. But like, what aspects of team defense is the group good at? Can you find ways to protect D'Lo, play to his strengths, gets a lot of hands on balls, things like that, whatever it might be. Maybe there's a way to do some of that, but I am despite my support for Russell broadly, skeptical that he's going to be able to make really significant, like, whoa, kind of progress over the course of 82 games with something like this, just because I think this deep into his NBA career, the muscle memory of what he's talking about, the attention to detail defensively, is very hard to build up. And similar to how I am on Max Christie Island, I just need to see it. I was on Rui Island last year. I just needed to see it. I'm going to need to see this from D'Lo before I believe that he's actually going to do it.
I need to see it as well. I mean, there's no question.
For
I think
2 months of this before I believe it's permanent.
Sure, whatever. I mean, I don't even know if it will be permanent, but if it's more often than not, that's a step in the right direction. It's helpful. Like if he is more often than not defensively engaged, even if it isn't close to as consistent as you'd want it to be or even need it to be, it's still incrementally helpful. Yeah. And look, I remember, like, as an example, last year, Game 5, the last game of the series against Denver, D'Lo's defensive engagement and activity in that game was fantastic. Like, I even looked through my old tweets just to make sure I was remembering the right game, and I was. Like, he was terrific in that. Like, he will occasionally have those types of games. And, like, the idea of wanting it in that comparison to Russ, I understand what you're talking about in terms of Russ playing in a way that would broadly be described as high desire. But where I do think the want it factor applied to Russ is Russ was incredibly inflexible. Like, he is one of the least flexible players. I describe him all the time. He's the least blendable player in the NBA now. And, I remember after Russ's first exit interview,
Denver Nuggets.
Well, I remember Russ during his exit interview with the Lakers saying that he felt like he sacrificed and changed his game more than anybody else on the team. I'm like, bro, what the hell are you talking about?
He came off the bench. Yeah, he did exactly the same thing.
This might have even been before he came off the bench.
Right, but he was but I mean, the big adjustment he eventually did make was doing the same thing, not starting.
But this is what I'm getting at, though. I think with Russ, a lot of what we're talking about with bad habits being broken was a matter of, I don't care enough to break them. Like, I'm going to play my way. This is the way I play. So a lot of this comes down to just wanting to change.
I don't think, and I said this at the time, I don't think Russ was capable of change. It's like in addition to want it, not want it, whatever. I don't think he could do it. I don't think he had the ability.
I mean, I don't want to make this all about
I
Russ.
know. And it's not an apples to apples comparison. And
we'll see if D'Lo is capable of, mentally capable of recognizing the need to do this.
Does it mean one or two fewer bad plays a game? If the answer to that question is yes, even if there might be 5 plays that you would love to correct, if he corrects 2 of them on average every game, it's a big deal for the Lakers.
Yes. And when D'Lo was talking about this stuff, I was thinking more about what he's saying, and he has a rep as a selfish player. And I don't think it's accurate at all. Like, I think D'Lo involves his teammates a lot. For a guy that will go on heaters and, he will seek out his shot. I don't think he puts up shots at crazy volume. I don't think he ignores teammates often. If you look at the advanced data, like you'll see, like, nobody got in Anthony Davis more involved last year than D'Lo by a long shot. So I don't think he is a selfish player. But what I do think he sometimes can be is a self-absorbed player. Like, I think he can sometimes be very caught up in his own emotions, in his own mood, in sort of the game within the game that he's playing. And, he acknowledged it sometimes affects his moods, and it would lead to him, not entirely lead to him those moments where he'd be separated off from the team, because some of that is just, I think, him finding his own levels of focus or his own maintenance or whatever. But there are things he would do that I think for a guy that is very self-aware in a lot of ways, I think he sometimes is, though, self-absorbed, like literally absorbed with self.
And I think
those are the type of things that, if he's more aware of that, then I think actually it will become hopefully easier to make some of these changes.
And that is really what he was apologizing for.
Yeah.
I think more than anything is those types. It's the read the room stuff. It's not what you're doing on the floor. It's all the ancillary stuff. It's your attitude in the locker room. It's your attitude toward it's saying the thing that you probably shouldn't say, and you've been around long enough to know you shouldn't say to the media, but saying it anyway, because like you just need, it is more important to you to get that thing off your chest than it is to do what's best for the group and keep it, just shut up, keep it internal. Like those types of things. And like, he is aware enough of the criticism, whether he probably thinks it's always fair. I doubt he does. But
I know he does.
But that said, he certainly recognizes there is enough truth to it in certain ways that, step back and apologize, like, is a little bit of this performative, trying to get a little bit of a restart with his, and again, supporting a coach that's supporting him in a year following one where there was clearly not a lot of support from the head coach. Yes. So, but that said, I would love to see him have the career year that Redick is saying that he would like to help him have, both because I like D'Angelo Russell and I'd like to see, the second half of his career begin successfully, or the back third or whatever he's on. And because if D'Lo has a career year, either the Lakers are going to be able to parlay that into a much better trade, or they get a really good player having a really good year, and that helps them win games. Anthony Davis talking about analytics, probably will raise some eyebrows for Thursday and Friday and stuff like that around NBA Twitter. We'll talk about it next. So I thought a pretty fascinating exchange at practice on Wednesday when Anthony Davis was asked, I think it was Dan Wakey from the LA Times asked him about the coaching staff's emphasis on data. And, what are their numbers that he wants to see? Certain things about defensive matchups, types of statistics, shot frequencies from certain players. Do they go right? Do they go left? And all these other things more often than that. And AD kind of looked at him and said, I don't know what half of those things are that you're talking about. And, while I am always a little bit skeptical of players like saying, I don't look at the data this way, most of these guys are aware, if nothing else, of the broad strokes of numbers. They know tendencies of players. Maybe AD just knows it from watching film and playing a lot of basketball against a lot of these guys. But they know more data. They have more information and stuff that they sometimes will talk about. But that said, AD made it pretty clear he is not, Andy, an analytics guy.
No, his exact words were, what matters to me is we have more points than the other team at the end of a game. Reading that quote from Mike Trudell. It's funny.
It is an important data point.
It's extremely important. And you could argue it is the most important data point at the end of the end of both the day and the game.
Yes.
I have seen some reaction mocking AD for this. The way I feel about it is, honestly, I would only care if I got a sense that AD on the court, like he's doing things that would reflect holding back his own success because he's ignoring data. But AD is very, very efficient on the court. He plays very smart. If anything, you and I have said before, we would like to see him at times, play with a little more what the F,
a little less concern about efficiency.
You're like a little, like to see him color outside the lines a little more, a little more YOLO. So I don't feel like Anthony Davis, whatever data he knows, doesn't know, maybe knows without even realizing that he knows it, as long as he plays the way he does, I don't particularly care if he values this data or not, because it doesn't seem to be getting in the way of anything.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, I think he absorbs the information one way or another. I think he's getting and it doesn't matter if you, statistically speaking, like AD is like, oh, this guy goes to his right all the time off of, when he's on the left block, he likes to drop the shoulder as a little fake and then spin the other way. Man, he must do that half the time. Actually, he's only doing it 38% of the time. It doesn't really matter, like that kind of thing. Like it's if he is doing his homework, if he is doing, what I think is a common misconception about a lot of these things, and some players love this stuff. Some people want as much data as possible. They want to, but just like when we talk about Andy, the detail oriented stuff with JJ Redick, it is possible as a player to overload, to be carrying around too many pieces of information, so you don't sift through and have the 5 most important things top of mind, so you can access that stuff quickly in times of need. Not everybody can be LeBron, who can carry terabytes of data.
But even then though, LeBron, I know LeBron knows the numbers, and I know he pays attention to advanced data, but he's also the guy who's at times said sometimes you just got to throw that bleep out the window.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. And a lot of his data is just this ability to remember, what a guy did in the third quarter of a game in 2012. Right.
He's got photographic memory, like he genuinely does. Kobe was a lot.
What is important? Yes, correct. What is important is that the coaching staff looks at the rights. It is the job of the analytics is really ultimately the job of the coaching staff. And it is the coaching staff that takes that stuff, these endless pieces of data, the volumes and volumes that are available to them. It's their job to take that stuff and make it useful and turn it into a game plan. It is the player's job to absorb that game plan and execute it. It is, I think, always good, in a management and employee situation, a player-coach relation, to understand the why behind decision making. And if a player approaches a member of the coaching staff and says, "Why are we doing it this way?" It's good for the coaching staff to be able to say, "Because of X, Y, and Z. Here's what they do. This, we do that, whatever." But not every player is going to want that. Okay, they're just, what is my game plan? What am I supposed to do tonight? Tell me what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to go do it. You want to change the game plan? Tell me we're changing the game plan. I'll go execute that game plan. So the fact that AD apparently doesn't want to sit and absorb all the data is not at all reflective of his ambition. I think, it's like you said, as long as he's not actively being like, don't care, and it's stuff that really would just easily help him.
If his shot diet, you watched it going like, dude, what are you doing? Like that would bother me more.
Right.
But
and I think it's honestly, it's more defensive stats that they were talking about.
Any of it, whatever. I mean, I mean, it sounds like AD does not particularly care about advanced numbers when it comes to figuring out his approach on defense. Were I to guess, and it's purely a guess, he likely watches a lot of tape. Like he likely watches a lot of video and does his research that way. Or, you know what? Maybe part of the reason he and LeBron have vibed so well is they're both photographic memory guys. Like, you don't have to watch anything. Like, what I don't care. Like, no. If the results are all there, then you know what? JJ Redick can focus more on a guy like Rui, who misses a lot of defensive assignments. Like, I don't really care.
I mean, how many years? What season are we on with AD? Is a 6? Something like that?
It's a 6 because it's LeBron's 7th coming up.
I can't think of a whole lot of instances where I was watching a game with Anthony Davis and going like, man, it doesn't look like he really prepped for this one, like defensively. Like, you know, and he clearly is understanding something about efficiency, because Darvin was like, you know, wanting everybody to take more threes last year and this, that, and whatever. And AD has been cutting down on that stuff because, like, you know, why? Ball doesn't go in.
And look, here's proof that sometimes, you know, you do have to say bleep the numbers, bleep efficiency or whatever. Like, apparently JJ Redick wants AD to take more threes too. And thus far, this has seemed like a really bad idea, no matter who suggested it. And I'm skeptical that it's ever going to happen. But
I'm one of these people though that believes, because he's down from a career high 3.5 in his first season with the Lakers to last 2 seasons averaging 1.3 and 1.4. I have a feeling because he shot a $186 3 years ago, 26% 2 years ago, and 27% last year. I wonder if in the grand scheme of things, if like we really are going to see a month in a noticeable bump in the amount of 3-pointers that Anthony Davis is taking. I don't believe we will. I think we'll see a lot more of other guys doing it. I don't think we'll see a ton of that from AD. I could be wrong.
I am extremely skeptical that we'll see it. And I say this as somebody that early in AD's time with the Lakers wanted to see more of a bump. I've since decided I was wrong about that.
The year he shot 3.5 with the Lakers, he shot 33%. The year before that, when he shot 2.5 with the Pelicans, he shot 33%. The year before that, it's just over 2 a game, he's at 34%. If he's at 33, 34, 35%, and you want to take 3 a game, okay, that's fine. But if you're shooting 23%, no, 1.5 is plenty. So we'll see what that means. But like it was an interesting moment to me just because it really distilled, I think, some of the misconceptions that people have around analytics. It's like, this is what the coaching staff has done to create a game plan. Players want to know why we're doing it, want to understand it better. The coaching staff should be able to explain all of these decisions that they're making. I get the sense that was part of the problem last year, is that when coaches were asked, why are we doing this? The answers were not good. And already we're seeing more reports of better communication and things like that over the course of the very early going in this season. But interesting exchange nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. And JJ Redick said he has a theory for why AD's jumper hasn't been as good over the last few years. Maybe he unlocks it. I end up wrong. Everybody wins. Perfect.
Sure. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the channel. Leave us questions, leave us comments. We will get you ready. First preseason game, Andy, is tomorrow. The Lakers will play a basketball game in uniforms and everything. And we'll get you ready for that, and see everyone tomorrow.